Picture a girl named Scotty. She's Japanese American, born in the United States, grew up here, speaks English, goes to school, has friends, has a life built entirely inside this country, and has never lived anywhere else. Then Pearl Harbor happens, and within months, she and her family are loaded onto buses with whatever they can carry and taken to an internment camp in the California desert. Not because she did anything, not because there was evidence, but because she was an American girl with a Japanese face in a country that had just decided that was enough. Kiku Hughes' graphic novel The Unwanted centers on a character caught in exactly this displacement, the precise, disorienting experience of a country revoking a belonging that was supposed to be unconditional. Most people reading this history from the outside see it as a historical injustice, a documented mistake, something that happened, was acknowledged, was compensated, and is now safely in the past. But there are people watching this video who don't experience it as safely in the past, because they know that feeling, not from 1942, they know the feeling from now. The specific, quiet, disorienting experience of building a life inside a country that you love, that you chose or were born into, and then watching the political climate shift and feeling for the first time the fragility underneath the belonging. The moment you realize that the belonging was conditional all along and you weren't given a handbook on these rules. This video is about what that does to a person. What it does to the mind and the identity and the sense of self when the place you called home starts looking at you differently. Let's get into it. There is a particular kind of loss that psychologist Pauline Boss calls ambiguous loss. It's the loss of something that still technically exists, a relationship that is technically still intact but has fundamentally changed. A home that's still standing but no longer feels like yours. A country you're still legally inside but that no longer feels the way it did. Ambiguous loss is harder to grieve than clean loss because you can't point at the thing that's gone. The passport is still valid, the address is still correct, the citizenship papers haven't been revoked. But the feeling, the interior sense of being home, being safe, being wanted, that's gone, or cracked, or uncertain in a way it never was before. For the Japanese Americans who were interned in 1942, the legal belonging was technically maintained throughout. They remained citizens. But the meaning of that citizenship, the protection it was supposed to provide, the belonging it was supposed to guarantee, had been revealed to be contingent. Contingent on political conditions, on public fear, on whether the country decided in a given moment that the belonging was convenient or inconvenient. And here is the thing that makes that specific. It wasn't what they did, it was what they were. Their ethnicity, their face, their origin story. The message underneath the internment wasn't, "You broke the rules." It was, "The rules don't apply to you the same way they apply to everyone else." That message is the one that leaves the deepest mark. Betrayal trauma is a concept developed by psychologist Jennifer Freyd to describe what happens when the source of harm is the same institution you were depending on for safety. It's different from ordinary trauma. With ordinary trauma, the danger is external, identifiable, separate from you. You can protect yourself from it by moving away from the threat. Betrayal trauma is what happens when the threat comes from inside your structure of safety, from a parent, from a partner, from an institution, from a country. Because what makes betrayal trauma so disorienting is that it cannot be resolved through the obvious protective move. You can't simply leave the thing that hurt you, because the thing that hurt you was also the thing holding you together. The institution you trusted was also the institution you needed. The country you loved was also the country you lived inside. The Japanese American families who were interned didn't stop being American during the internment. Many of their sons were fighting in the Pacific, serving the country that was imprisoning their parents. They couldn't resolve the contradiction by leaving. The country was everywhere. It was home. And that impossibility, the inability to simply move away from the thing that violated the trust, is what makes this kind of wound so hard to process. You can't leave, and you can't fully stay. And so you exist in a kind of suspension between those two things, maintaining the daily routines of belonging while carrying underneath them the knowledge that the belonging is not guaranteed. So that suspension over time does certain things to a person. Your identity, the story you tell yourself about who you are, is partly built on the places that claim you. The country that says, "You are ours, you belong here, this is your place in the world." When that claiming becomes conditional, the identity built on it becomes unstable. Not in a dramatic, visible way, but in the quiet, interior way that the most significant identity shifts always happen. You stop saying, "my country," and start saying, "this country." The possessive pronoun disappears. It gradually disappears as the interior adjustment happens to match what the external reality is showing you. You start noticing things you didn't notice before. The way a room changes when politics are mentioned. The way certain conversations shift when your background becomes relevant. The micro calculations you make about when it's safe to mention where you're from, or what you believe, or who your family is. You develop a second awareness, a concurrent low-level monitoring of the environment for signals about how safe the belonging currently is. This is exhausting in a way that is invisible to people who have never had to do it, because it runs underneath everything else. Scotty, in The Unwanted, experiences this as physical displacement, a literal fence around the perimeter of the camp, an external, visible line marking the limits of the belonging. For most people living through conditional belonging in 2026, the line isn't visible. It is felt. It moves. It changes depending on the news cycle, on who won the last election, on which way the political wind is blowing this week. So the rules keep changing. Because you never know what will get you in trouble today, it feels like the finish line is always moving. And then there is the specific grief that comes from loving the place anyway. Because most people who experience conditional belonging don't stop loving the country that has made them feel unwanted. That would be simpler. The Nisei, the second-generation Japanese Americans who were interned, largely came out of the camps and rebuilt. Returned to communities that had, in many cases, taken their property, their businesses, their homes. They continued to identify as American, continued to invest their lives in a country that had imprisoned them. This is not Stockholm Syndrome. It is not naivety. It is the particular, complicated loyalty that comes from having built your identity inside a place, from having loved it long enough and deeply enough that the love doesn't simply end when the place fails you. It's what Kiku Hughes is pointing at in The Unwanted, the coexistence of love and betrayal, the refusal to let the betrayal be the only truth about the relationship. That coexistence is not weakness. It is one of the most psychologically sophisticated responses available to a person in that situation. You can love a place and see it clearly. You can grieve what it did and still call it home. You can hold the betrayal without being consumed by it, but only if you're allowed to identify it first. Now to what happens when the country you chose doesn't want you anymore. In this case, the self reorganizes, quietly, without announcement. The interior map of who you are and where you belong gets redrawn. The belonging that felt solid reveals itself to have always been resting on something shakier than you realized. And that revelation, however it arrives, whatever political moment delivers it, is a very specific type of pain or grief that most people don't have a name for. Because the common language that exists is mostly triumphant, about belonging, about integration, about becoming American, about the promise of this place. The language for what it feels like when that promise shows its conditions, when the fine print appears after decades of believing there wasn't any, that language is harder to find. The unwanted is one place it lives, and this video is another. You are not imagining the shift. You are not being paranoid. You are not failing to be grateful enough, or integrated enough, or American enough. You are experiencing the oldest disappointment in the history of conditional belonging, the discovery that the welcome was never as unconditional as it looked. That is a real loss, and it deserves to be named as one. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Also, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you know someone who will benefit from this video, send it to them. See you in the next one. Bye.